She looked straight at my pregnant belly in front of all the relatives and said, "You're not family." I smiled, opened the brown notarized envelope, and placed it on the table next to the cake. No one knew I'd been preparing for this moment for months: lawyers, trust funds, asset separation clauses, and a final letter from the woman who'd left me her inheritance. I didn't come here to beg for acceptance. I came to draw boundaries and shift the power structure of their family, right in the middle of my own baby shower. My name is Ava Hartley, and I've spent 3 years learning that marriage isn't just about loving someone, it's about surviving their family. At 31, I thought I'd found my place in the world as an art director at North Point Creative, a small but thriving design firm in Austin. I'd built my life from scratch after Mom died when I was 12, raised by my grandmother Nora Bennett in a modest duplex near Muller Park. We didn't have much, but Grandma Nora taught me that dignity wasn't something you inherited, it was something you carried in your spine. Ethan Cole swept into my life like a Texas thunderstorm, sudden, overwhelming, and impossible to ignore. A civil engineer with kind eyes and calloused hands, he was everything I thought I wanted. His family seemed like a bonus at first established, stable, respectable. His mother, Margaret, everyone called her Maggie, ran a boutique on South Congress that sold overpriced candles and jewelry to tourists. His father, Robert, worked in commercial real estate, the kind of man who communicated primarily through nods and cleared throats. The first warning sign came at our engagement dinner. Maggie had insisted on hosting at her country club, the kind with leather chairs and oil portraits of dead white men. "So, Ava," she'd said, swirling her chablis, "Ethan tells me you grew up locally." The pause before locally stretched like pulled taffy. "Your people must be so proud you've done well for yourself. Your people." As if I'd crawled out of some collective mass rather than having a name, a history, a grandmother who'd worked 2 jobs to put me through UT Austin. The microaggressions accumulated like dust on a windowsill, barely visible at first, then suddenly everywhere. "Oh, you wouldn't understand. Dear, it's a family tradition." Or, "That's not really how we do things in the Cole family." My favorite was when she introduced me at her church fundraiser. "This is Ethan's wife, Ava. She's learning our ways, learning their ways, like I was some feral creature being domesticated." Ethan saw it but didn't see it, if that makes sense. "She doesn't mean anything by it," became his refrain. That's just how Mom is. But I started keeping a journal, documenting every slight, every moment she made me feel like an imposter in my own marriage, the time she accidentally left me off the family Christmas card, the Mother's Day brunch where she seated me at the overflow table with the plus ones and second cousins, the way she'd touch my clothes and say, "How interesting. Where did you find this Robert, my father-in-law, perfected the art of strategic absence?" He'd drift to his study when tensions rose, mumbling about quarterly reports. Once, after Maggie spent an entire dinner explaining how some people just aren't raised with certain advantages, I caught him in the kitchen. "She means well," he said, not meeting my eyes. "She just wants what's best for Ethan. What's best for Ethan, never what's best for us." The boutique Magnolia and Grace became her throne room. She'd invite me to girls' lunches there, which were really sessions where she'd passive-aggressively redecorate my life. "You know, Ava, there's a wonderful colorist on 6th Street. She could do something about your situation." My situation being my natural auburn hair that didn't match her vision of a Cole wife. But I endured it. I smiled at dinners where she'd serve things she knew I was allergic to. "Oh, I forgot about your sensitivity to shellfish. There's salad, though." I nodded when she explained that women from good families understood certain unspoken rules. I even kept quiet when she told her book club that Ethan had married down but married sweet. Grandma Nora saw it all during her last Thanksgiving with us. She pulled me aside while Maggie was holding court about her charity work. "Baby girl," she said, her weathered hands covering mine, "you're storing up a lot of hurt in that heart." I'd tried to laugh it off, but she shook her head. "Just remember, dignity isn't about what they think of you. It's about knowing your worth when they try to price you out. She died that January, quietly in her sleep. At the funeral, Maggie actually said, "Well, at least now you can focus on becoming a proper coal woman without distractions." Without distractions. My grandmother's body wasn't even in the ground yet. That was the moment I stopped trying to earn my place at their table. But I didn't know yet that Grandma Nora had left me more than memories. She'd left me the power to flip that table entirely. The pregnancy test showed 2 lines at 6:15 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I sat on our bathroom floor, back against the cool tile, while Ethan slept peacefully in the next room. 3 tests later, the reality settled in. I was growing a life inside me, and somehow, I already knew this child would become Maggie's next project. Morning sickness hit me like a freight train, not the delicate, romantic version you see in movies, but the kind that had me hugging the toilet at work, missing client meetings, and barely keeping water down. My supervisor at North Point Creative suggested I switch to part-time temporarily. "Take care of yourself, Ava. The campaigns can wait." Maggie saw opportunity in my weakness. "You poor thing," she cooed when Ethan told her about my reduced hours. "This is why women need family support. Don't worry, I'll handle everything." Everything meant my life became her dictatorship. She showed up at our apartment with paint samples for the nursery, all beige and gray. Gender neutral, but classic. She scheduled my prenatal appointments at her doctor. Not mine, because Dr. Morrison delivered all the coal babies. She even started a group text called Baby Coal Preparations, where she assigned tasks like we were planning a military operation. "The baby shower will be at Maple Ridge Methodist," she announced over dinner one night. "Their event room holds 150. 150? I nearly choked on my ginger ale. "Maggie, I don't even know that many people." "Well, I do. This is about introducing you properly to our community." Introducing me properly. After 3 years of marriage, she commandeered every decision with surgical precision. The theme would be Blessed Beginnings, not the literary theme I'd suggested. The menu would be her caterer, not the food truck tacos I'd wanted. The guest list exploded with her country club friends, her boutique customers, her church circle, while my friends got relegated to a small table in the corner. "We need to put our best foot forward," she explained, crossing off my colleague Leah's name. "Some of your choices are a bit unconventional." Unconventional meaning divorced, or single mothers, or women who worked in masculine fields like my friend Priya, the accountant. The financial manipulation started subtly. "Don't worry about the cost, dear. The Coles take care of their own." But every dollar came with strings attached like a marionette. She wanted input on the baby's name, nothing too ethnic or modern. She insisted on booking the newborn photographer, her sorority sister who specialized in making babies look like tiny CEOs. She even started discussing which preschool applications we should submit. "The little one isn't even born yet," I protested weakly during one of her planning sessions. "Exactly why we need to start now. Good families plan ahead. Ava." I started documenting everything in my phone. Screenshots of her texts, recordings of her suggestions that were actually commands, photos of the lists she'd make, reorganizing my life down to which prenatal vitamins I should take. The file grew thicker than my pregnancy journal. Ethan became a ghost of himself, caught between his mother's expectations and my morning sickness. "Just let her help," he'd plead when I complained. "She's excited about her first grandchild. Your mother's acting like she's having this baby, not me." "That's not fair. Ava, she's trying to include you." "Include me." I wanted to laugh or cry. Sometimes both. She was colonizing my pregnancy, claiming territory on my body like it was manifest destiny. The breaking point came during a planning session at her boutique. She'd gathered her inner circle women with helmet hair and statement jewelry who looked at me like I was a rescue puppy Ethan had brought home. "Now," Maggie announced, pulling out a leather folder. "I've drafted a little speech for the shower, just some thoughts about family legacy and bloodlines." She read it aloud. Every word was a velvet-covered knife. How Ethan was continuing the Cole lineage, how the baby would be raised with proper values, how I was learning to embrace tradition, the coup de grace. While Ava may not be family in the traditional sense, we're doing our best to guide her. Her friends murmured approval. One actually said, "How generous of you, Maggie." That night, I lay in bed with my hand on my growing belly, feeling the first flutters of movement. "I promise," I whispered to my child, "you won't grow up thinking love comes with conditions." Ethan rolled over, half asleep. "Did you say something?" "Just making plans," I said. "Good. Mom will be happy." But Maggie's happiness was no longer my concern. I'd spent too long auditioning for a role in her family drama. It was time to write my own script, and I knew exactly where to find my backing in a legal folder I'd discovered while settling Grandma Nora's estate, documents that would shift the entire balance of power. The Cole family was about to learn that some women don't need to be given a place at the table. We bring our own table, along with the deed to the house it sits in. The letter arrived from Whitaker and Rowe Law Firm on a Thursday afternoon, exactly 1 year after Grandma Nora's funeral. I'd been expecting some final paperwork, maybe a few $1,000s from a life insurance policy. What I found instead made me sit down hard on our kitchen stool, papers trembling in my hands. The Bennett Family Trust, the document began, established by Eleanor Nora Bennett for the sole benefit of her granddaughter, Ava Marie Hartley. The inventory took 3 pages. The cabin on Lake Travis, not just any cabin, but 5 acres of waterfront property now worth 7 figures. An investment portfolio that had been quietly growing since the 80s. Mineral rights to land in West Texas that was producing steady royalty checks. And then, the detail that made my breath catch administrative control of the Bennett Community Foundation, a small but influential charity that provided annual grants to local businesses, including Magnolia and Grace, Maggie's boutique. I drove straight to the law office, my mind spinning. Dana Whitaker, a woman with silver hair and shrewd eyes, walked me through everything with the patience of someone who'd been waiting for this moment. "Your grandmother was a very strategic woman," she explained, spreading documents across her mahogany desk. "She structured this trust carefully. Everything is your separate property under Texas law. It never becomes marital property, regardless of your marriage status." "I don't understand. Grandma Nora worked at the post office. She clipped coupons. We shopped at Goodwill." Dana smiled. "She also bought Austin real estate in the 70s when it was cheap. She invested every penny she didn't need to raise you. And she was very, very patient." The letter from Grandma Nora was in a separate envelope. Her careful handwriting still so familiar it made my chest ache. "My darling Ava, if you're reading this, it means you need what I've left behind. Not the money, though, that helps, but the power to stand on your own ground. I've watched you bend yourself into shapes trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. Stop. The Bennett women don't beg for seats at other people's tables. We build our own houses. Use this wisely. Use it to protect yourself and any children you might have. And remember, respect is not inherited or married into. It's demanded. There's more," Dana continued, pulling out a folder marked with the foundation's logo. "The Bennett Community Foundation has distributed roughly $200,000 annually to local businesses. Your grandmother personally selected the recipients. Magnolia and Grace has received $15,000 every year for the past 5 years." I stared at the grant history. Maggie's boutique, the throne from which she ruled her social kingdom, had been partially funded by my grandmother, my working class, local grandmother. "As the trust administrator," Dana explained, "you have full discretion over grant distributions. You can modify, suspend, or terminate funding based on the Foundation's charter, which includes provisions about maintaining community values of respect, dignity, and inclusivity. So if a recipient violates those values, you document it and pull the funding. Your grandmother was very specific about that clause." We spent the next 2 hours strategizing. Dana recommended updating my estate planning immediately, creating additional legal protections given my pregnancy. Consider a postnuptial agreement, she suggested. Texas law is complex about separate property, but with a baby coming, you want clear boundaries, especially regarding medical decisions, education, and custody arrangements. Ethan would never. It's not about Ethan. It's about establishing that no one else, no grandparent, no extended family can override your parental decisions. I thought about Maggie planning my child's preschool, choosing the doctor, designing the nursery. Draw it up. The next weeks were a careful dance. I met with Dana regularly, always during times when Maggie had her boutique's busiest hours. We created an ironclad postnuptial agreement that Ethan signed, honestly relieved to have all that legal stuff handled. He didn't read it carefully enough to notice the clauses about limiting extended family involvement in medical and educational decisions. I also started my own documentation file. Every email where Maggie mentioned that I wasn't really family. Every text about needing to properly raise my child. The recording of her baby shower speech draft where she explicitly stated I was an outsider being graciously included. Dana taught me to think like a lawyer. Evidence, documentation, patterns of behavior. If she publicly humiliates you, Dana said during our final meeting, especially while you're pregnant, that's not just cruel, it's potentially harmful to your health and the baby's. Document everything, have witnesses, and then use every tool at your disposal. I placed my hand on the brown envelope that contained copies of everything: the trust documents, the foundation charter, Grandma Nora's letter, the postnuptial agreement. She's planning to announce at my baby shower that I'm not real family, I said quietly, in front of 150 people. Dana's smile was sharp as a blade. Then perhaps it's time Mrs. Cole learned who actually holds the purse strings of her boutique's grant funding. I don't want to be cruel. It's not cruel to demand respect. Your grandmother knew that. She built this safety net for exactly this moment. Driving home along Lake Travis, I pulled over at the spot where the cabin my cabin sat, hidden behind cedar trees. The water sparkled in the late afternoon sun, and for the first time since getting pregnant, I felt like I could breathe fully. Maggie thought she held all the cards because she had social status and her son. But Grandma Nora had taught me something she never learned in her country club. Real power isn't about who you know or whose name you carry. It's about who signs the checks. The final planning meeting for the baby shower took place at Maggie's house on a Sunday afternoon, 2 weeks before the event. She'd summoned what she called the committee, her sister Linda, 2 cousins, and her best friend from the country club. I was invited as a formality, the guest of honor with no actual say. Now then, Maggie announced, arranging papers on her dining table like a general planning an invasion. Let's review the program. She'd laminated an actual timeline. 11:30 a.m. Arrival and mimosas. Virgin for Ava, obviously. Noon for the blessing. Pastor Williams has prepared something special about bloodlines and legacy. 12:30 for games, proper ones, not those vulgar ones about measuring bellies. 1 o'clock for gifts, then her speech at 1:45, right before cake. What about the menu? Linda asked, examining her copy. Cucumber sandwiches, chicken salad, the usual, though we'll have some simpler options for Ava's friends. She glanced at me. I know your people prefer more casual food. My people. Again. Actually, I said, my voice steady. My friend Leah is a vegetarian, and Priya has a severe nut allergy. Oh, those friends. Maggie's tone could have frozen July in Texas. Well, they can eat the fruit. The discussion moved to decorations. Maggie had chosen a theme she called Blessed Bloodlines, complete with a family tree displaying 5 generations of Coles, with my name added at the bottom in what looked like pencil, as if it could be erased. This is beautiful. Maggie, her friend Susan gushed. So meaningful. Family heritage is everything, Maggie replied, looking directly at me. Some understand that instinctively. Others need guidance. I kept taking notes in my phone, pretending to track details. Really, I was documenting every slight, every dismissal, Every moment she reminded the room that I was an outsider playing dress-up in her son's life. The speech draft was the finale. Maggie cleared her throat and read from her iPad. Today, we celebrate the continuation of the Cole legacy. While Ethan's wife comes from different circumstances, we've opened our arms to guide her toward understanding what it means to raise a Cole child. Though she may not be family in the traditional sense bloodline, heritage, breeding, we trust that with proper oversight, this child will still uphold our standards. Different circumstances. Proper oversight. Not family in the traditional sense. That's lovely, Linda murmured. Susan actually applauded. I stood up slowly, hand on my back. Excuse me, morning sickness. In the bathroom, I sent the recording to Dana Whitaker and typed, "This is it. She's going to say this publicly." Dana responded immediately. "Perfect. Have your documents ready. Get witnesses." When I returned, Ethan had arrived from his golf game. He kissed my cheek absently, already pulled into his mother's orbit. "Ethan, darling, we were just reviewing everything. Doesn't the family tree display look wonderful?" He glanced at my name in pencil at the edge. Something flickered across his face. Shame recognition. But it passed. "Yeah, Mom, great." That night, he tried to make love to me, but I couldn't. My body felt like a battlefield. Our bed a no man's land between two versions of reality, his, where his mother was just enthusiastic, and mine, where I was being systematically erased even as I grew his child. "What's wrong?" he asked, hand on my 7-month belly. "Your mother is going to stand up at my baby shower and tell everyone I'm not real family." "She doesn't mean it like that." "Then how does she mean it?" "Ethan." I turned on the bedside lamp, needing to see his face. "When she says I'm not family in the traditional sense, what exactly is she saying?" He couldn't meet my eyes. She has ideas about how things should be." "And you're okay with those ideas? What do you want me to do? Ava, she's my mother. And I'm your wife. This is your child." He sighed, that bone-deep exhale of a man who'd chosen the path of least resistance his whole life. "After the baby comes, things will be different. She'll see you as the mother of her grandchild." "No," I said quietly. "She'll see me as the incubator for her grandchild." We lay in darkness, backs to each other, the space between us filled with everything he wouldn't say and everything I couldn't forgive. The next morning, I called Leah and Priya. "I need you at the shower, both of you." "Maggie made it clear we're not exactly welcome." Leah started. "I don't care what Maggie wants. I need witnesses, real friends, people who'll have my back." "Against what?" Priya asked. "Against what's about to happen when I show everyone who really owns the table Maggie thinks she's setting." I spent the next week finalizing everything. The documents were notarized. The Foundation's letter about grant eligibility was drafted, ready to send. The post-nuptial agreement was filed. Every piece of evidence was backed up in 3 places. The night before the shower, I sat in Grandma Nora's cabin, my cabin watching the sunset over Lake Travis. The brown envelope sat beside me, heavy with possibility. "Okay, Grandma," I whispered to the empty room. "Tomorrow, I stop bending. Tomorrow, I build my own table." My phone buzzed. "Maggie, of course. Remember, dear, tomorrow is about presenting our family properly. Do try to look appropriate." I smiled, my hand on my belly where my daughter tumbled and kicked, already fighting, already refusing to be still. Appropriate. Oh, I'd be appropriate. Appropriately done with being treated like a stray dog Ethan had brought home. Appropriately finished with auditioning for a family that had already decided I'd never be enough. Tomorrow, Maggie would learn what happened when you pushed a Bennett woman too far. We didn't break. We didn't beg. We brought receipts. The morning of the baby shower, I woke at 5:30 a.m. with unusual clarity. No morning sickness. No anxiety, just crystalline purpose. I dressed carefully in the navy dress Maggie had suggested, pinned my hair the way she preferred, Even wore the pearl earrings she'd given me last Christmas with the backhanded comment about elevating your look. Let her think she'd won. Let her think I was playing my role. The brown envelope sat in my leather bag, documents arranged in precise order. On top, Grandma Nora's letter, handwritten on her personal stationery. Below that, the notarized Bennett family trust papers with the gold seal prominent. Then the Foundation's grant history, highlighting Magnolia and Grace's 5 years of funding, the post-nuptial agreement Ethan had signed. Finally, the draft letter to Foundation recipients regarding eligibility requirements, dated today, ready to be sent. I called Leah first. I need you recording when Maggie gives her speech. Recording Ava. What are you? Trust me. Set your phone somewhere discreet. Priya will do the same from another angle. I want multiple copies of whatever happens. Next call to Priya. Bring your tablet, the one you use for client presentations. Make sure it's charged. You're scaring me a little. Don't be scared. Be ready. Sit where you can see both Maggie and me clearly. My third call was unexpected. Pastor Williams's assistant at Maple Ridge Methodist. Hi, Sarah, it's Ava Hartley. I know Pastor Williams is doing the blessing today at my shower. Could you ask him to stay for the whole event I might need? Spiritual guidance? Of course, honey. He'll be honored. The final call went to Dana Whitaker's emergency line. Today's the day. Are all the documents filed? Everything's official as of 9 a.m. this morning. The Foundation letters are in my outbox, ready to send on your signal. And if she tries to claim the grant was personal, not business. The tax records are clear, business grants requiring adherence to Foundation values. You're on solid ground. I spent an hour in Grandma Nora's cabin, sitting in her old rocking chair, the one she'd brought from her mother's house. 3 generations of Bennett women had rocked babies in this chair. Today, it would witness something else, a Bennett woman refusing to be rocked anymore. Give me strength, I whispered, hand on my belly. Not for me. For her. My daughter responded with a strong kick, as if she understood. Ethan found me in our bedroom at 10 a.m., adding the final touch, a small silver locket with Grandma Nora's picture. You look beautiful, he said, but his eyes were worried. Mom called 3 times to make sure we won't be late. We won't be late. Ava. He sat on our bed, looking younger than his 33 years. I know Mom can be difficult, but today's important to her. Important to her. I turned from the mirror. What about what's important to me? That's not fair. Isn't it name one thing about this shower that I chose? One single detail that reflects what I wanted. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Exactly. I picked up my bag, feeling the weight of the envelope. Your mother is about to learn that some things can't be controlled, bought, or manipulated into submission. What does that mean? It means I'm done auditioning for a part in your mother's production. Today, I'm writing my own script. We drove separately, I insisted, despite his protests. I needed my own exit strategy. Leah and Priya met me in the parking lot, both dressed carefully in outfits that would pass Maggie's inspection while still maintaining their own dignity. You sure about this? Leah asked, noting my expression. I've never been more sure of anything. I pulled out 3 small cards, handing one to each of them and keeping one. These are your witness affidavits. If anything happens that seems like harassment, discrimination, or deliberate humiliation, note the time and details. Jesus, Ava, what are you expecting? I'm expecting Maggie to be exactly who she's always been, but today, for the first time, there will be consequences. We walked toward the church together, through the windows. I could see the event room transformed into Maggie's vision, pink and gold everywhere. That family tree display prominent near the entrance. Tables set with china I knew cost more than my monthly car payment. One more thing, I said, stopping at the door. Pastor Williams will be staying for the whole event. He's known for his stance on dignity and respect in families. Former family court mediator. He understands power dynamics. Priya actually smiled. You've thought of everything. No, I corrected, hand on the door handle. Grandma Nora thought of everything. She knew this day would come, maybe not exactly this, but something like it. She knew that women like us, from different circumstances, would need more than good intentions to claim our space. I looked at my friends. These women Maggie had tried to exclude, who'd come anyway because real family isn't about bloodlines or social registers. "We don't go to war," I said, opening the door. "We go to court, and we bring evidence." The room fell silent as we entered. 150 faces turned toward us, and at the center, Maggie stood in her cream suit, smile sharp as winter, arms open in a performance of welcome that fooled everyone but me. "There's our mother-to-be," she announced to the room. Finally. We were 5 minutes early. The event room at Maple Ridge Methodist had been transformed into Maggie's fantasy pastel pink and gold balloons clustered at every corner. A banner reading "Blessed Beginnings for Baby Cole" stretched across the stage, and that family tree display positioned where every guest would see it upon entering. My name, still in what looked like erasable pencil, dangled at the bottom like an afterthought. "Ava, dear," Maggie's voice carried across the room, performance-pitched for her audience. "Your special chair is right here." She'd positioned a decorated throne-like chair at the front, but slightly off-center, where I'd be visible to everyone but somehow still peripheral. The real center was reserved for her podium. "How thoughtful," I said, setting my bag carefully beside the chair. The brown envelope inside seemed to pulse with possibility. The room filled with Maggie's World Country Club women with architectural hair, boutique customers draped in statement jewelry, church committee members clutching gift bags that probably cost more than the gifts inside. My friends had been directed to a table in the back corner, what Leah later called the kids' table at Thanksgiving. Maggie orchestrated everything with military precision. "Susan, ensure the gift table stays organized. Linda, the games will start at 12:30 sharp. Everyone, remember to sign the guest book. It's an heirloom piece I'm creating for the baby." An heirloom where my friends' names would be segregated to the back pages. No doubt. Pastor Williams arrived during the mimosa service, his presence lending gravity to what Maggie treated as her coronation. He caught my eye and nodded. Sarah had briefed him well. The games were designed to humiliate. Guess the baby food where Maggie made sure to mention that I probably ate different brands growing up. Pin the diaper on the baby with commentary about how some people need more practice than others, and the piece de resistance, a quiz about the Cole family history where I was expected to fail publicly. "Question 5, Maggie announced, holding her cards like a game show host. "What year did the first Cole arrive in Texas?" I didn't know. The room tittered as I shrugged. 1843, Maggie informed everyone. "Real Texans know their heritage." Real Texans. As if my grandmother hadn't been born in Austin when it was still mostly farmland. I caught Priya discreetly adjusting her tablet's angle. Leah's phone sat innocuously beside her purse. Red recording light hidden but active. Pastor Williams had stopped smiling, his pastoral antennae clearly picking up the undercurrents. The gift opening was another production. Maggie had arranged for her friends to go first silver spoons, embroidered blankets with the Cole family crest, a literal silver rattle engraved with "Future Cole Legacy." Each gift was met with Maggie's running commentary about quality and breeding and proper upbringing. When Leah's gift came up a beautiful set of children's books about strong women throughout history, Maggie actually said, "How educational, though we prefer classical stories in the Cole family." "Like what?" Leah asked innocently. "Fairy tales where women need rescue." The room went quiet. Maggie's smile could have cut glass. "Traditional stories with traditional values." The cake ceremony began at 1:30, a 3-tiered monstrosity decorated with sugar flowers and, of course, the Cole family crest. Maggie had arranged for a photographer, her sorority sister, to capture every moment for what she called the family archives. "Now then," Maggie announced, moving to her podium. "Before we cut the cake, I've prepared a few words about family, legacy, and the sacred trust of raising a Cole child." This was it, the moment she'd been building toward. I placed my hand on my bag. feeling the envelope's edge through the leather. She began reading from her iPad, voice pitched to reach every corner of the room. The speech started with Cole family history, their arrivals, their accomplishments, their contribution to Texas society. Then came the pivot I'd been expecting. Today, we welcome a new addition to the Cole lineage. While the child's mother, she gestured at me, comes from different circumstances, without the advantages of heritage or breeding, we embrace this opportunity to guide and shape this child properly. Cameras were recording. Several phones had appeared, capturing what Maggie thought was her moment of triumph. You see, she continued, warming to her theme, family isn't just about who you marry or who gives birth. Real family is about bloodlines, traditions passed through generations, standards maintained despite dilution. Dilution. Like I was watering down their precious genetics. Though Ava isn't family in the traditional sense, no established lineage, no social foundation, no inherited understanding of our ways, we trust that with proper oversight from the Cole family, this baby will still uphold our standards. I stood up. The room shifted, all eyes turning to me. Maggie paused, clearly not expecting interruption. Are you feeling all right, dear? She asked, faux concern dripping from every syllable. I know this can be overwhelming for someone not used to proper society. I reached into my bag, pulled out the brown envelope, and walked slowly to the cake table. The room held its breath as I placed the envelope next to the silver cake knife. You're absolutely right, Maggie, I said, my voice carrying clearly. I'm not family in your traditional sense. I turned to face the room, my hand resting on the envelope. But before we cut this cake, I think everyone should know exactly who they're dealing with. You see, Maggie's right. I don't come from her kind of family. I come from something entirely different. Maggie's smile flickered. Ava, dear, perhaps you should sit. I'm not finished. My voice was calm, steady, backed by 3 generations of Bennett women who'd never gotten to speak their truth in rooms like this. You said family is about bloodlines and inherited understanding. So let me tell you about my inheritance. I opened the envelope. I pulled out the first document, the gold notary seal catching the afternoon light streaming through the church windows. This is the Bennett Family Trust, I announced, holding it up for everyone to see. Established by my grandmother, Eleanor Nora Bennett. It includes 5 acres of waterfront property on Lake Travis, currently valued at $2.3 million. A diversified investment portfolio worth another $1.8 million, and mineral rights in West Texas generating approximately $70,000 annually in royalties. The room went completely silent. Someone's mimosa glass actually clinked against a plate. My grandmother, who Maggie likes to remind everyone was local and from different circumstances, bought Austin real estate in the 1970s. She invested every spare penny while working 2 jobs to raise me after my mother died. She built wealth the way real Texas women do through grit, intelligence, and patience. Maggie's face had gone pale. Ava, this is hardly the time. Oh, but it is. I pulled out the second document. This is my grandmother's letter, written before she died. Would you like me to read it? She has some thoughts about family and respect. I cleared my throat and read, My darling Ava, the Bennett women don't beg for seats at other people's tables. We build our own houses. Use this inheritance to protect yourself and any children you might have. Remember, respect is not inherited or married into, it's demanded. Pastor Williams had moved closer, his expression intensely interested. But here's the really interesting part, I continued, pulling out the next paper. This is the grant history for the Bennett Community Foundation, which I now control as trust administrator. Magnolia and Grace Maggie's boutique has received $15,000 annually for the past 5 years. That's $75,000 of my grandmother's money supporting the business from which Maggie lords over everyone. Gasps rippled through the room. Maggie gripped the podium. That's not possible, she stammered. Oh, but it is. Every grant comes with requirements maintaining community values of respect, dignity, and inclusivity. And do you know what violates those requirements? I pulled out my phone, swiping to my documentation file. Systematic harassment, discrimination, public humiliation of pregnant women. I held up the post-nuptial agreement next. This was signed by Ethan last month, witnessed and notarized. It establishes that all Bennett Trust assets remain separate property, but more importantly, it includes specific clauses about family interference. No grandparent or extended family member can override parental decisions regarding medical care, education, or upbringing of our child. Any attempt to undermine, harass, or publicly humiliate either parent results in immediate restricted contact. Ethan had stood up from his seat, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and something that might have been relief. You've spent months telling everyone I'm not real family, I continued, my voice growing stronger. You've made lists of my inadequacies, publicly questioned my worthiness, suggested I need oversight to raise my own child. You even put my name in pencil on that family tree, like I'm temporary. I turned to address the room directly. Everyone here has witnessed Maggie announce that I'm not family in the traditional sense, that I lack breeding and heritage, that I need the Cole family's guidance to properly raise my own baby. You've recorded it on your phones. Pastor Williams, you've heard her Christian charity in action. Pastor Williams stepped forward. I have indeed heard some concerning things about respect and dignity within families. I pulled out the final document, the draft letter to Foundation recipients. As of today, I'm implementing new oversight standards for all Bennett Foundation grants. Any recipient who engages in discriminatory behavior, public humiliation, or systematic disrespect, especially toward pregnant women or new mothers, will have their funding immediately terminated. I looked directly at Maggie. The email regarding Magnolia and Grace's grant status was sent at noon today. Your behavior at this baby shower in front of 150 witnesses was the final documentation needed. You can't, this is extortion, Maggie sputtered. No, it's consequences. You've spent 3 years telling me I'm not family. Fine, I accept that. But if I'm not family, then we're business associates. And in business, contracts have terms, grants have requirements, actions have ramifications. I picked up the cake knife, its silver surface reflecting the overhead lights. You wanted to talk about inheritance and bloodlines. Let's talk about what my daughter will inherit. Not your approval, she'll never need that. Not your family name, she'll make her own reputation. She'll inherit something worth more than your social registry or country club membership. I made the first cut in the cake, the knife sliding through the pristine white frosting. She'll inherit the knowledge that her mother stood up in front of a room full of people who thought they were better than her and drew a line in the sand. She'll inherit the lesson that respect isn't granted by birth or marriage or social status. It's claimed by those brave enough to demand it. I set down the knife and picked up my bag. If I'm not family, then respect my boundaries as you would any non-family member. Don't touch my body without permission. Don't make decisions about my child. Don't presume any authority over my life, and don't expect money from foundations I control. I walked over to Ethan, who stood frozen between his mother and me. You have a choice to make, I said quietly, but loud enough for the microphones to pick up. Your mother, who just publicly humiliated your pregnant wife, or your actual family, your wife and unborn child. Choose now, in front of everyone. Ethan looked at his mother, then at me, then at my belly where his daughter grew. He walked over to me, took my hand, and faced the room. I choose my wife and child, Mom. We're leaving. As we walked toward the door, I turned back one last time. The trust fund I inherited. It's already in a protected account for my daughter's education, real education, where she'll learn that family isn't about blood or birthright. It's about choosing each other, every single day, especially when it's hard. The room erupted in chaos behind us, but I didn't look back. In my belly, my daughter kicked strongly, as if applauding her first lesson in standing tall when the world tries to make you small. The silence in the church parking lot was absolute as Ethan and I walked to our cars. Leah and Priya flanking us like bodyguards. Behind us, the event room erupted, voices raised, chairs scraping, the careful social order Maggie had orchestrated collapsing like a house of cards in a thunderstorm. Ethan's hand trembled as he held mine. Did that really happen? Every word, Leah confirmed, holding up her phone. Recorded from 3 angles. That was magnificent. Ava. But I wasn't feeling magnificent. I was feeling the weight of what I'd just done, not regret. Never regret. But the gravity of drawing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. My hand went to my belly where my daughter seemed unusually still, as if she too was processing the moment. The trust. The foundation. How long have you known? Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. 2 months. Long enough to get legal advice. Long enough to document everything. Long enough to give your mother every chance to treat me with basic human dignity. We'd reached our cars. Through the church windows, I could see Maggie surrounded by her friends, some comforting, others clearly demanding explanations about the foundation grants their own businesses might have received. Pastor Williams emerged from the building, walking purposefully toward us. Mrs. Hartley, he said formally, then softened. Ava, that was one of the bravest things I've witnessed in 40 years of ministry. Or the most destructive, I said, suddenly exhausted. Sometimes, he replied gently. Destruction is necessary for resurrection. Your mother-in-law built her kingdom on foundations she didn't own. That's not your fault. Robert, my father-in-law, appeared in the doorway. For once, he wasn't retreating to his study or disappearing into his quarterly reports. He looked at Ethan, then at me. Then did something I'd never seen him do in 3 years of marriage. He walked past his wife without acknowledging her and approached us. The Lake Travis property, he said quietly. I remember when that area was nothing but cedar and limestone. Your grandmother was brilliant to buy then. You knew my grandmother. I knew of her. She outbid me on a commercial property in '78. I was furious until I saw what she did with it, turned it into affordable housing for single mothers. Never made maximum profit, but never missed a payment either. He paused, looking back at the church. Maggie never understood that real power isn't inherited. It's earned. He walked to his car without another word, leaving his wife to face her audience alone. Ethan drove us home in silence while I sat in the passenger seat, the brown envelope in my lap like a cooling weapon. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by something hollow and sharp. Are we okay? He finally asked as we pulled into our apartment complex. I don't know, I admitted. I know I'm okay. I know our daughter will be okay. But us, that depends on what you do next. Inside our apartment, I sank onto the couch, suddenly feeling every ounce of my 7 months pregnant body. Ethan sat beside me, not touching, both of us staring at the wall where we'd planned to hang family photos we'd never taken. She really said you weren't family, he said, not a question, but a realization. All those times, all those comments, and I just let it happen. You did. I thought if I stayed quiet, it would get better, that once the baby came, it would have gotten worse. She would have used our child as another weapon, another way to prove I wasn't enough. My phone buzzed. Dana Whitaker. Foundation letters delivered. 3 businesses have already called asking about their status. Word travels fast in Austin. Then Priya. Check social media. Someone already posted clips. Baby shower justice is trending locally. But I didn't care about trending or justice or even vindication. I cared about the little girl growing inside me, who would never have to sit at a table where her worth was questioned. I need you to understand something, I told Ethan. Today wasn't about revenge or money or even your mother. It was about our daughter. She's going to grow up knowing that her mother had a backbone made of something stronger than wishful thinking, that when someone tells her she's not enough, she has every right to show them exactly how wrong they are. Ethan nodded slowly. What happens now? Now, Now we live our lives. We raise our daughter. We set boundaries and enforce them. Your mother can be in our lives if she can respect those boundaries. If not, I shrugged. Then she made her choice today, in front of God and half of Austin society. The sun was setting through our window, painting the room gold and pink, the same colors as the baby shower decorations, but warmer somehow, more honest. I thought about Grandma Nora, who'd worked double shifts and invested in dusty Texas land when everyone said she was foolish, who'd built an empire in silence and given me the tools to defend myself when I needed them most. You know what the funny thing is, I said, feeling the baby start to move again. Those strong kicks that promised a fighter. Your mother was right. I'm not her kind of family. I'm not someone who needs to tear others down to build herself up. I'm not someone who mistakes cruelty for class or control for love. I stood up, leaving the brown envelope on the coffee table evidence of a war that ended the moment I'd chosen to fight it. I'm exactly the kind of family our daughter needs me to be. Someone who knows that respect isn't about bloodlines or bank accounts or who came to Texas first. It's about standing up, speaking truth, and teaching the next generation that they don't have to shrink themselves to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold their full brightness. The last sliver of sun disappeared behind the Austin skyline. Somewhere across town, Maggie Cole was learning what happened when you built your kingdom on someone else's foundation. But here, in this small apartment with its second-hand furniture and walls that needed painting, a new family was being born, not perfect, not traditional, but ours. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Ava's situation? Let me know in the comments.